So as before, please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Sabrina Hill, and I'm a resident of the city of St. Catharines.
Okay, please raise your right hand. Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this arbitration is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I so affirm.
Okay, you may proceed.
Through you, Chair, hello members of the committee. When I wrote this, I did not know whether the owners before you today intended to appeal this order or whether they intended to seek yet another extension. In many respects, however, that distinction is irrelevant. The fundamental facts remain unchanged. The current owners have had more than a decade to meaningfully manage, remediate, and develop this site, and they have failed to do so. Over that same period, contaminants have continued to leach into the surrounding environment. Nearby waterways remain at risk. Soil contamination remains a concern. Residents now face the additional prospect of asbestos in the soil, a material that can become airborne and spread beyond the property's boundaries. I have toured this site extensively by air legally, including as recently as July 21st. I have provided the committee with photographic evidence. I don't know if you were able to. I'll continue while they're sorting that out. During a recent phone call with a concerned resident struggling to find the words to describe what remains there, the closest we could come to when characterizing the conditions of the property was that it was an end-of-days set piece straight out of Fallujah in the early days of Operation Phantom Fury. What exists on both the east and west side of the property, or Ontario Street, can only be described as a surreal post-apocalyptic hellscape, a scene that feels less like an industrial property awaiting development and more like something from a William Blake fever dream. Littered across the site are vast quantities of broken glass, tetanus-topped rebar, dangling electric wire, deep auburn pools of stagnant diesel, and mossy-colored quagmires of nauseous chemicals. Standing water collects throughout the property, slowly seeping into the subterranean oubliettes at the foundation. All the while, wildlife continues to drink and bathe in it. For years, residents have been told that the property is safe and secure. My observations suggest otherwise. Fencing and gates are in serious disrepair, only being occasionally repaired. I have personally witnessed substantial deadfalls on both sides of the property, some only being walled off on 3 out of 4 sides. There's one right there, in fact. Areas that once contained underground infrastructure, piping, and industrial systems have deteriorated into flooded voids that continue to undermine already failing foundations. For more than a decade, this community has watched the 4 horsemen draw even closer to this property, not because the dangers are unknown, but because decisive action has perpetually remained over the horizon. The biblical book of Revelation speaks of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse: conquest, war, famine, and death. Conquest, because delay has become strategy. War, because residents have spent years battling simply to have obvious dangers acknowledged. Famine, because this community has been starved of accountability and meaningful action. And death, because every year that passes increases the risk posed to the environment, the wildlife, and the public. The arduous march through the city's labyrinth process to get us from this point has often felt like an exercise in logic designed by M.C. Escher himself. Yet despite the delays, the studies, the reports, the hearings, and the promises, the site remains in a condition that no reasonable person could describe as acceptable. If an appeal is being requested, I urge the committee to uphold the order. If an extension is being sought, it should not be open-ended. It should be tied to strict benchmarks, firm deadlines, publicly reported progress, and meaningful enforcement mechanisms, and those benchmarks, should those benchmarks not be met. I would also ask this committee to reflect on a simple question of fairness. Ordinary homeowners in this city are expected to comply with property standard orders. They do not receive unlimited time. They do not receive endless second chances. Not to plagiarize the previous speaker, this was a complete coincidence. A 70-year-old widow can find herself facing enforcement action over a disquieted dandelion-filled front yard. Yet the owners of this property, or their lenders, have been afforded more than a decade to address the conditions that pose demonstrable and existential risks to the environment and the community, and the bylaw officers that have to service this area. Whether that perception is fair or not, many residents have come to believe that one set of rules applies to ordinary citizens and another applies to well-resourced corporate property owners with close personal ties to some elected officials. Public confidence in municipal enforcement depends on demonstrating that the same standards apply to everyone. After more than a decade, the time for explanations has passed. The time for action is now. Thank you.
Do any members of the committee have any comments or questions they'd like to ask the presenter? Does the city have any comments or questions they'd like to ask the presenter?
No, Mr. Chair, thank you.
None? Okay. You may head back to the gallery.